my God, Becky. Where did you get those bracelets? They are so cute.
They make me look like a yogi, and I got them from you at spiritualjunkies.com. Duh. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but the Dharma Drops Smile bracelet, it's my favorite.
You can go to spiritualjunkies.com, and in the new year, there are so many different handmade bracelets, all genuine gemstones, and they help you hold your intentions.
And that's the thing I love so much about Spiritual Junkies. Mala bracelets, they're handmade, they're authentic, and I get to take my intention with me everywhere I go. So, Deanie, can you tell us where we can find all of your malas this year?
spiritualjunkies.com, and there's a promo code for Dharma Drops. It's code DharmaFriend for 15% off.
Awesome. So guys, you can head over to spiritualjunkies.com and save 15% on a single order with the promo code DharmaFriend. That's spiritualjunkies.com, spiritualjunkies.com with the promo code DharmaFriend, DharmaFriend. This is Dharma Drops with your host, Rebecca Warfield. This podcast is a little bit about yoga, a little bit about life, and a little bit about whatever. And just as a warning, this podcast is unscripted, so that means I might regret a few things that I say. But hey, maybe I'll say some pretty awesome stuff too. Remember, these are musings, not truths. Buckle up, giddy up, because here we go. Everyone always feels nervous. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Trust me, the only one who ever says anything stupid is me. The guests are totally fine. And you have Hank right next to you.
He's my biggest fan.
He is your biggest fan. He's not my biggest fan. I mean, Hank loves me, but he sits in here with me every single day when I work, and he just... the entire time. But he doesn't even curl up with me like he is with you. Aww, he loves you.
Very sweet.
Yes. So you ready to begin?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Okay. Hey, Dharma Drops listeners. This is your host, Rebecca Warfield, and I'm here with my friend and UNCW colleague, too, Kristen Nice. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. My dog loves you.
I love him. He's super sweet.
You can babysit him.
Done.
He's a good dog. Sometimes he stinks, I'm not going to lie, but he's so cute.
So cute.
He's the best. So we are actually recording in my home studio today, which I almost never do with other people. So you're the first one to record here.
Oh,
yeah.
yay.
So welcome. I know. So I tried to sort of separate out the podcast and my personal life, but I made it 10 months before it started to it's just too complicated at that point. And like traveling all over the place, trying to talk to people, around, just in Wilmington,
sure.
but it got to be a lot. So welcome to my sort of small and mildly disorganized space.
It's lovely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad you're here. So Kristen is here today. It is January 2nd. So she's here to talk about prenatal yoga, which has nothing to do with January 2nd necessarily. But before we get into the prenatal aspect, I want to know, are you doing anything special for the new year? Any goals, resolutions, intentions?
I do not have any. Several years ago, I used to set intentions all the time, like resolutions, and I've kind of moved away from that and just try to continue doing what I'm doing.
I think that's a good intention.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually said something similar to Erin yesterday. I do have a couple things that I want to do this year, but they're not really New Year's goals necessarily. I wanted to do more study with Tantra and Bhakti, but that has nothing to do with the new year. That's something that I've been feeling a calling toward in the last, 6 months or so. But I told Erin, I said, there's not like one specific thing I want to do. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing and get better at it.
Right.
That's it. You know, that's it. And I feel like the New Year's resolution thing just falls off the wagon, by January 3rd.
Right.
But to be fair, though, it was about 5 years ago, I guess maybe 6. 5? Doesn't matter. 5 or 6 years ago. So Erin and I have been together for 5.5 years. It had been 5 years ago. And I've mentioned this on the podcast many, many times, but it was a New Year's health goal that brought me to the yoga practice.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not trying to dog them, because if you actually stick with them, sure, they can be transformative, but that's the only one I ever really stuck with. My goal was to do 30 days of yoga, and now we're on year 5 and a yoga career and a yoga podcast, So,
Yeah. Well, I feel like there can be so much pressure tied to a New Year's resolution. So I just try to set goals throughout the year.
Yeah.
And just stay on that path, because otherwise it just feels like so much pressure, and then January 3rd, it's done. Mm-hmm. And then I'm down on myself because I've let it go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also what we need in January is not what we need in February, March, April, May, or June.
Right.
You know, so our bodies and our lives are changing. Gina Caputo. Do you know Gina Caputo? No. She's a yoga teacher. And I mean, I don't know her. I just know of her. Hey, Gina, what's up, girl? You know, I don't know her like that, you know, but Gina Caputo posted something on Instagram the other day about how it's really important to recognize change, and that change is good. And so I don't know if her Instagram post was in this context, but it made me think about how, for me, my resolutions are often trying to seek something from my past years, you know, like, oh, well, I used to do this. Why am I not doing it now? I need to get back into doing those things. But she was saying change is normal. And so let's just roll with the change into 2020.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that.
Me too. I thought that was a really good perspective.
Nice.
You'd like Gina Caputo. She's funky.
I will look her up.
You should. She's funny. She's I feel like we'd get along in real life if we met. No. Do you want to be my best friend? So, anything else exciting happening for the new year before we get in here?
Well, I'm teaching a workshop in a couple days.
And I'm going to it.
I know. I'm so excited.
So, okay, it's really interesting because before I get too wound up, can you tell the listeners what your workshop is?
So my workshop is Reveal Your Inner Wisdom, and it's based on the Sage archetype. So when I was in my master's, I did some work looking into archetypes in Jung psychology, and I was just fascinated with it. So when we got to the fall equinox, I did a class just based on working with the shadow, and that kind of just pulled me right back into examining all of this. So I started thinking about archetypes more and thought, you know, new year, dealing with the sage and finding our inner wisdom would probably be a really great theme. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to examine the sage archetype as it appears in stories that are connected to specific yoga postures that are named after sages. And then we're going to look at those qualities and kind of pull out those lessons, see how they might be present in our own lives, and then use that to meditate and then manifest a vision board to take us into the new year. Oh my
gosh, I can't wait. I'm registered.
So
I'm really excited. And now I feel like we need to record a second episode about archetypes.
I would love to do that.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
Shoot, we can do it right now. Who cares? What's really interesting is that Erin for Christmas got me the new Kim Cran's archetype card deck.
I'm totally working with that.
Should I bring it?
Bring it.
Okay,
yes.
yes. I'll bring it. That's so exciting. Yeah. I don't know a lot about archetypes, but what's really interesting is before Christmas, we were at Erin's parents' house in Chapel Hill, and Ram Dass had just died. Mm. And Erin's parents, they loved Ram Dass, and they sat with him in satsang. You know, they were followers and students of Ram Dass, so their hearts were pretty heavy, you know, the day he died. Although they are followers of Ram Dass, even though of course, sadness comes with death. But I was like, Ram Dass died, Linda. She was like, he didn't die, his body dropped. I was like, okay, sorry. Ram Dass's body dropped, you know. But that inspired us to watch a documentary on YouTube. I don't even know what it's called, but it was with Timothy Leary and Ram Dass. It was later in their lives, so it was sort of like a reunion, and it was about death. And they were talking about the bardo state of death in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Okay. So flash forward to Christmas Day, I get these archetype cards from Kim Cran's, and I pull the Bardo card.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. So I was like, okay, that's a sign. So I pulled the Bardo card, and now I've been reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead. So it's kind of cool. So I'm curious to see if Bardo comes up again in your workshop.
Right, yeah.
It's going to be cool. Yeah. Okay, so we'll do archetypes in episode, I don't know, this will be episode 31, I think. So I don't know, episode 42.
I think that'd be great. I'd love it.
Perfect. But before that, so we're here to talk about prenatal yoga because we have not had any guest on Dharma Drops talk about prenatal yoga before.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. I saw prenatal for you last night, and it's terrifying.
Oh, gosh. You know, it's so hard to find a sub for prenatal.
Everyone's scared.
Everyone is scared to do it.
Why?
Yeah. I think they're afraid that the women are much more fragile than they are. And I think that scares them. And then if they aren't familiar, well, even if they have had a baby and they have been pregnant and had practiced yoga, every woman's experience is different. And so not having that unknown factor, I think people are afraid that they're going to do some damage or push them too hard, or, you know, and the biggest thing is you have to to trust the women. They know what is best for them.
That's the one takeaway from prenatal yoga training, which I have actually very minimal prenatal yoga teacher training just from my 200-hour, the little module section of it. But that's the one takeaway that I really remember, is to really encourage them to listen to their innate wisdom. But for me, I think you hit the nail on the head about why folks are afraid of teaching prenatal. And I'm always afraid of teaching prenatal too, because there's so many diverse needs in the room. And of course, there's diverse needs in the room no matter what you're teaching. But I feel like there's also, for example, I had a pregnant woman come to class one time and she was really afraid. She was like, I'm afraid to do this. I'm afraid to do that. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you to do anymore.
Right.
You know, so it's a little scary. But it went really well. Everything went well last night. Everyone's good. So all is well in the world. So how did you get into prenatal yoga?
So I was taking my 300 teacher training, and it was one of the elective modules. And I thought, I don't know if I want to take it. I've never had kids. I don't know if that's really a path that I want to go down. But the weekend came up, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to try it and see. And I loved it. I just loved it. And I felt, I can't describe it any other way than just kind of feeling a calling. Because people have asked me before, I'm like, it's not like I'm fulfilling a need that I didn't fulfill.
Sure.
You know, I just feel like I would be very good at it.
You're so nurturing.
Thank you.
And so kind. That's the other thing about prenatal that scares me. I'm like, bend your knee. You know, in my yoga classes, more. You know, and I don't know if that's what these mamas want.
You gotta find the right balance.
Yeah.
You know, like I challenge them, but I also give them that ooey gooey, you know, like really luxurious type of movement too. But we do the challenge poses as well, and we hold them as long as an average contraction. And they can always tell.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
How long is the average contraction?
It can be anywhere from 30 to 90 seconds.
Well, that sucks.
I know. So I usually go right around 60.
This is fun. I didn't know it was so much fun talking about prenatal yoga. Right. So the average contraction is 30 to 90 seconds. But that's cool that you have them hold posture so that long, because there's a lot of it. I can't compare contractions to yoga because I've never experienced that. But there's a lot of intensity in holding a yoga pose, and this wanting to just let me straighten my leg. Let me get out of here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll hold goddess pose because not only does it help in terms of that holding up the contraction time, but it's also building their strength at the same time. And it's opening the hips, all things that they need to do to get ready for labor. And I've actually had people reach out after their experience and tell me that how much that really helped when they went through labor, was thinking about knowing that they could get through that goddess pose, knowing that they could do one more breath, and how much that prepared them for that process.
Yeah. And I mean, I know we're talking about prenatal, but in general, the yoga practice prepares us for these things. In fact, I was thinking about this today because when you came in, I just told you that I have been working on a binding practice today. And what I like about binds is they do sort of the same work. They teach us how to let's just sit with this. I mean, all of yoga does that, but binds for me especially do that. And so there are these times in life where things probably do feel so out of control, like labor, I would imagine, where, I mean, what are you going to do about it? Right. You're going to have to learn how to sit with it because it's going to happen.
Yep.
You know, it is coming. This is happening right now.
Right.
So what are some important things that we should know about prenatal yoga in general? Maybe for yoga teachers, but just even for practitioners.
I think one of the biggest things is to remember to not hold the breath. I always cue breath as I'm leading them through the practice, but you know, what I'm cueing may not match what they're feeling. So it's important that they don't hold the breath at any point and they just continue with their breath. But it's such a good practice for them just to be aware of their breath and notice when they might have the habit to hold.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's a big one. Having the conversation with their physician beforehand to make sure that that they should be practicing yoga, and make sure that there aren't any things going on, like depending on the position of the baby, how many weeks they are, whether or not there are certain postures they shouldn't be doing. So just making sure that they're talking to their practitioner as well. and keeping them informed.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty big one we should emphasize. Make sure you're talking to your physician, because also one thing that I think is challenging for me whenever I sub prenatal yoga for you, and I've subbed it for some other people in the past, is often for many prenatal yogis, it's their first time practicing yoga too.
Yes,
so it's not just like someone like you and me who's been practicing yoga for years going in and learning modifications and new ways of doing things during pregnancy. It's someone who doesn't even know how to do any yoga at all.
Right.
So that's a challenge in itself for sure.
Yeah. And they might not even be active in other ways. They might have just been told, hey, this would be a good thing for you to do. And maybe they don't run, maybe they don't work out, maybe they don't swim. This might be the height of their physical activity.
Yeah.
So keeping that in mind too. I have a lot more intimate conversations with my prenatal clients to know where they are and how they're feeling, because it is changing all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things too. So I was talking to Casey, what's up, Casey, at the front desk, and I was like, I'm terrified of teaching prenatal. I was like, it's the one thing that I don't really like to teach. It's not that I don't like to teach it. I don't often teach it, so I'm always like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
And she was like, but it's so sweet. She was like, everyone comes out and they're like in this little community, and there is, I think, a relationship built between, oh, Hanky, you're snorting. A relationship built between the teacher and the students, and then the students among themselves that doesn't always happen in other yoga classes.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So part of the practice that I bring is we always have a little discussion right at the beginning. So I'll usually share either a quote or story or something that's affected me in some way that has to do with change or expectation or whatever the theme is. But then I open it for them to share. And everyone shares their name and number of weeks. But if that sparked something else for them to share, they're encouraged to do so. If it doesn't, that's fine too. But it usually opens up some sort of discussion where they discover that they all have the same fears. They all have the same types of pains and worries. Same type of family situations often, with that outside pressure and expectations. So it allows them to start that conversation that they will often take outside of the class and form relationships.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is great.
And I think that you hit an important point. I remember a long time ago, my friend Savannah, I may have talked about this on the podcast before, when she was pregnant with her first daughter, she told me privately, she's like, I'm really scared. And she's like, and everyone's like, oh, it's the most exciting time of your life. And she was like, I actually am really terrified about this, and I think we don't talk about that.
Right.
Because it is this short period of time. And I think for many moms in hindsight, it is the most exciting, and they just forget to acknowledge the fear that comes along with it. And of course, yoga can help us tackle fears too. So it's nice to have that community sense.
Yes, definitely.
Why don't we do this in all yoga classes?
I know, right? Yeah.
I'm serious. I'm thinking, like, the more I'm talking about it, the more I wonder.
I've started in my other classes, I've started asking if anyone has anything they'd like to add. And of course, nobody ever does.
Everyone's terrified,
I joke
aren't
with them,
they?
I'm like, one of these days you're going to want to say something.
So you work at UNCW, but you work in the admin role, right?
Yes.
Have you ever worked in the teacher position, like teaching?
I haven't, no.
So teaching at college, is the exact same way. Anyone have anything to add? And then that's it. It's like dead silence. And I'm like, really? Because we've been talking about this for 16 weeks. You don't have anything to say? It's like when you go into the yoga classroom and everyone's lined their mats up against the back wall. And I'm like, can we all just move forward? Because I can still see you.
Right. And I will come to meet you. You don't come forward. I'll come there.
Matter how far you push your mat back. I can see you. It's very funny. So, but I do like the community aspect that develops in the prenatal classes, because I think it is important to tackle those fears. And I think a lot of times we're also assuming that these women have supportive partners.
Right.
Like that they have someone at home who is helping them, whether it's emotionally, financially, physically, whatever. So many women don't have that, so this is a place for them to get some support and some community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Kind of bums me out to think about that.
Yeah.
But it's true.
Yeah. And it's important to think about, excuse me, when you're teaching too, because even just certain phrases that you might use, making sure that you're using words like partner rather than husband, or, or birth support partner rather than, romantic partner.
Yeah.
and just not making those kinds of assumptions that they have all that same support.
For sure.
Or that they have family in the area too, or even talking about stories of parenting or experiences with their parents, knowing that everyone's coming from a different situation, thinking about their mom may not be a positive thing, So maybe it's qualities that you think a mother has. So changing those so that they're, because we want to make sure that everything is kind of in a positive sense and uplifting. Yeah.
And empowering, I guess, too, right?
Yeah.
To make choices. And going back to the beginning of the conversation, to trust that innate wisdom, not just of the body, but also how to be a mother.
Right.
Because I guess that's a pretty big fear, too. Like, how do I do this?
Yes.
Because it's not as easy as having a little Frenchie snuggled up next to you.
Yes.
I don't think it is. I don't know. Never done it. Ready for a shift? Become a yoga teacher. Whether you are searching for a career change, additional income, or want to dive deeper into your own yoga practice, Longwave Yoga's yogic studies and teacher training will surely transform you. Apply for one of the 2020 200-hour programs today. The Longwave Yoga programs are offered in North Carolina, but the 6-month format and the varying cities makes it accessible for anyone no matter where you live. The Longwave Yoga programs are offered in Fayetteville, North Carolina, January 10th through June 21st, Greenville, North Carolina, January 24th through June 14th, and Wilmington, North Carolina, March 6th through August 8th. Longwave Yoga programs are geared toward yogis like you who would like to take time to dive deeply into the suggested practices and text in order to fully assimilate and comprehend the material, and to weave the experiences into your daily life. Learn more at www.longwaveyoga.com. That's www.longwaveyoga.com. Again, that's www.longwaveyoga.com.
The biggest thing, of course, is to just make sure that there's always creating space. So we want to keep the spine extended. It's okay to do mild twists, always checking. They should always check with their medical provider. But as long as they're not doing a closed twist and crunching in on themselves, keeping things extended and open. And a lot of times they're anxious to do twists. But if we talk about it...
There's a lot of chatter about twists in prenatal yoga. And even when I talked for you last night, we did sort of the stag seat. And I was like, twist in one way, see how it feels. Twist the other way and see how it feels,
right,
because it made more space to the belly that way. And, they both took twist toward the front leg, but it just wasn't a big one.
Right, yeah. Yeah. Well, and I often I tell them, bring your sacrum with you. So that we're keeping the whole thing connected and open rather than kind of cutting off that space. Yeah.
And I think too, I've never had any like OB/GYN folks tell me this, but one time I hurt my back and it was a pretty serious injury and I was down for quite some time. I couldn't practice yoga or anything. I had 2 discs slip in opposite directions. It was a real bum. But the doctor was like, well, what type of exercise are you doing? I said, I'm doing yoga. He was like, no. You have to stop doing yoga. He was like, you cannot twist yourself in those weird positions. It's terrible for you. So there's so much conversation in the, I don't want to say in the medical community because that's not true. Obviously, there's plenty of medical professionals out there who practice yoga and tell people to go to yoga and stuff. But I think some people out there don't fully understand what yoga is. And they're like, oh, if you twist...
Right.
You're gonna hurt yourself and the baby, which isn't necessarily true.
Right. And then I'm still gonna honor wherever they're coming from.
Sure,
so if they're coming to class feeling like I don't want to twist, that's fine.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
We'll totally honor that. But hopefully along the way they'll feel like they can experiment with these things and feel in a safe space,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you ever work with, is it called postnatal after you have a baby? Pre and post? Yeah, postnatal. Yes. Do you ever work with women postnatal?
I haven't specifically. That's one thing I've talked with the owner of Longwave, Lexi, about, is finding a way to bring them back. It's just every woman's labor and birth experience is so different. It's hard to have kind of an all-encompassing postnatal. Yeah. Because recovery can be so different, from weeks to months. Yeah. Depending on whether or not they had a natural birth or C-section or, whatever the different varieties were. So we haven't been able to come together on something like that. But I do encourage women to come once they're cleared by their provider, be able to come back to a beginner yoga or restorative or something like that. But I'd love to come up with something to bring women back for the community piece too.
Yeah. Because now like they're experiencing pregnancy together, and now there's this whole new thing about being a mom together.
Yes.
I mean, I've heard so many moms say that just because it's your second or third kid doesn't mean it's any less like jarring,
right.
because now you're managing 2 kids
right.
or 3 kids,
right.
And so to have this sort of like upheaval of life and then have a support system to come back to would be really sweet.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of the mamas that I know who came to my classes when they were pregnant, it was like a year later that they came back. And most of the time they're like, I just haven't been able to find the time because they had this screaming little baby that needs food all the time, and stuff like that. And they're tired, and so they can't get back to it. So I think that's probably a component too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Ooh, tea time. Are you drinking tea or coffee?
I'm drinking a chai latte.
I'm drinking licorice tea right now. But
I love licorice.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh my God, me too. It's so good.
Yeah. I also love the licorice mint one.
I have some in my kitchen. It's so good. In the episode I recorded with Rachel Goolsby, she brought me a cup of tea and it was Bengal spice. Oh, it's amazing. I've gone through like 3 boxes or something now. It's so good. So good. I think, not getting back to the conversation, this is how Dharma Drops rolls. Anyone that listens to Dharma Drops knows that there is a lot of like meandering through conversation.
That's my favorite part about it. Thanks.
I told Aaron the other day, I said, I feel like we always get back to the point. Yes. And I feel like that's because from I guess I'm headed into 13 years of teaching English, you learn how to bring it back because they will get you sidetracked so fast. Right. Like in the middle having a conversation about, I don't know, some piece of literature and someone's hand raises, the assignment that was due last week. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what is your brain talking about right now? Right. It's crazy. But getting back to prenatal yoga, the other thing that I think was really important that you mentioned is that they're stronger than people think they are, right? Yes. They're like, the body is not fragile just because you're pregnant.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And I haven't had a lot of experience with a ton of pregnant ladies in my classes. Do you think that they feel that they're fragile, or it's just that there's this assumption from the teacher's perspective?
I think it depends on where they are in the number of weeks. I think earlier on they do feel more fragile. Usually I find after they hit the second trimester, they tend to feel a lot better. Their morning sickness is gone. They're not feeling as many ill effects, and they're just starting to feel stronger and they're starting to feel ready. And that's like the best time for them to start prenatal. I've had people start a little bit earlier, but they're not, sometimes they forget that they're even pregnant when it's that early. They come at 10 weeks or 12 weeks. So they're much more present when they start in the second trimester. So yeah, I think it depends on where they are and how they're feeling. But I think it's also sometimes an assumption of the instructor thinking that they're fragile. And it's also that, I'll be teaching class and all of a sudden I'll see them just kind of touch their stomach and look down. And as an instructor, I'm like, is everything okay? But I'm also like, that's part of their experience too. Yeah. And just being aware of those things. So
yesterday when I was subbing for you, there was someone in class, and I actually learned this from Brittany Roy. Hey, Brittany, not in prenatal, but because we worked together when Brittany was pregnant. And toward the end of her pregnancy, she was just really uncomfortable. Right. And we were sitting on the floor a lot because we're working in a yoga studio, and so she would put 2 bolsters horizontally and then lay over them so her belly could hang. And she would just work like that. And so I had the class actually do Shavasana like that yesterday.
Oh, nice.
And the one woman, when she got up, she was like, she's having twins. And she was like, I was sitting like that and they were like moving in all these different ways that I've never felt before. She's like, I think it's because they've never like been hanging,
space,
I was like, they were probably like, where are we going? She's like, that was really amazing. And so, and I noticed that she didn't look like she wasn't resting in Shavasana, but she was kind of like, you could tell she was thinking about like, what's going on in here. And so going back to what you said, it was just part of the experience. She has 2 little babies in there rolling around, right? Like doing things. And it was the first time she's experienced it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cute. It was funny. It's like, I've never felt it before. So my question for you, I know if women have not practiced much yoga, they should avoid doing things like, of course, like inversions and stuff. But for regular practicing yogis, can they hop into inversions and sort of do the things they've always been doing?
Yes, absolutely. And I've seen many people that are regular practicing yogis that will come to my prenatal class and then they'll go to a vinyasa class. You know, they're still keeping up with their regular practice. The biggest thing is they know what their body can do. And then I had one client, like she was doing inversions all the time because their baby wasn't in the right position. And so her doctor was actually like, yes, you should do inversion. She's like, yes.
See, that's what I'm talking about. There's a lot of doctors out there who are like, do yoga.
Yes, yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So she was doing handstands and forearm stands and all of that right up until the end. And her baby finally did turn. So she was able to birth, you know, in the appropriate position. I don't know.
You know? Yeah. Just a regular birth.
Right.
Yeah. And what about like big back extensions? That was something we did camel in your class last night because I feel like, you know, the knees, it doesn't have to be huge.
Right,
you know, and
yeah.
I even brought like a bolster to the calves so they wanted to touch the bolster, you know. But what about back extensions? Because I feel like that would be too much. But I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on the person. I'm pretty sure Brittany did full back extensions for a long time. In hers.
Her practice stayed strong the entire. I remember being in the Jewels for Bray workshop, and she was like all the way in Shirshasana doing leg variations. And I mean, I can never do that in general. Right. You know what I mean? Like I can't do it at all. And she has this like, she was at like her max pregnant size, and I was like, what in the hell? Like. What am I doing wrong? You know, her practice stayed really strong. But she went into Urdhva
I think she did. I think she did.
Interesting.
Yeah. But again, it depends on the person. The back extensions can be a lot of tension on the front of the baby because you are stretching so much, and if your muscles aren't already kind of used to that pattern, then doing it when you're pregnant, there's just not a whole lot of space, right?
Yeah. And all that, what's it called, relaxin in the body that makes pregnant women more flexible. I forget who it was recently. Who do I know that's pregnant? I can't remember, but they were saying like, wow, I've never been able to do this before. Right, you know, and I told your class last night because we came into Prasarda Padottanasana. And I was like, if you feel like, wow, I've never done this, let's back it up. Like, it doesn't have to be the wildest forward fold you've ever done.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I always encourage them to support too. Like, so if we do pigeon or something, to have that support because they are more flexible than they realize, and it can be easy to pull something without realizing that they're going too far. But then I've also had women after they've had their baby, then they don't have that relaxin flowing anymore, and all of a sudden they're like, I'm so stiff.
Oh yeah,
you know, because they were able to access that so much more prior to labor.
You know what I learned recently? I recorded a podcast episode with a woman named Veronica in California. Hers will probably be published after this one, I think. I don't always know what order. So for those of you listening, you may have heard it by now. You may not have. I don't know. But she had mentioned, too, that during menstruation, women produce a little more relaxin. And so that's because we were talking about whether or not women should like do heavy exercise or inversions on their periods. And she said that she has heard that we produce relaxin during menstruation too. So kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the uterus is still contracting.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. Yeah.
We got a lot to think about. I'm over it.
I know, right?
God, can't I just hang out and drink my tea with my friend and my dog and like not have to worry about my relaxin once a month damaging my pelvis? I'm over it. It's a lot to deal with, for sure.
For sure.
So are there any other important points to prenatal yoga that you think are important for ladies listening, or even their birth partners or their partners to know? Because it's not, I think it's not just about, for me, it's not just about knowing how to do yoga if you're a pregnant woman. Like, how can we also support our fellow women, the women in our lives, you know, toward a healthy pregnancy? Is there anything else that we should know?
Sure. There's tons of stuff.
Let's start. Let's do it.
One thing that I also do in my class is I often give them partner poses. And so they'll do partner poses with each other to practice, and then I encourage them to take that home to their partners to work with them. They're usually poses that they can do during labor as well, or early labor, so they can start that process of moving that baby down. And then I also taught a couples prenatal yoga workshop about a month ago, which so much fun. So much fun.
Is that the one where your earring got stuck? Yeah, I remember Kristen and I were at a holiday party together, and there was, I don't know, 10, 12 yoga teachers talking about like yoga class mishaps, and your earring got stuck in what was it, in her hair?
Yeah, it was in her hair.
My ring got stuck in someone's hair one time. I mean, I had to pull it out.
We're doing this very nurturing, supportive posture. Then all of a sudden, my earring is stuck in your hair. Just don't move.
It just happened. I'm telling you, that's a podcast for a different day. Right. True tales from the yoga classroom.
Yes.
So your workshop, your partner workshop. Yes.
Yeah.
So what was going on?
Yeah, that was fantastic. So the ladies brought their birth partner, whether it was a romantic partner or support partner, whatever. And so we did a lot of postures that they could do at home just as like a regular yoga practice, supporting each other. But then we also did these postures that they could do during early labor and active labor and kind of during that dilation period to help with pain management, control, and physical facilitation to ease some of that discomfort. So one thing that I have them do is this hip squeeze. The mamas love the hip squeeze because it releases all this pressure in the lower back and in the front of the belly sometimes. And so we'll practice that in class, and then they'll practice that with their partners. And one thing that I heard from a lot of people was that during labor, they could not remember to do it, or their partner couldn't remember to do it.
So much going on.
Yeah, there's so much going on. So that's why I decided to do the, the couples workshop, so that they had it more in their body.
Yeah. And it's also in the partner's body. Like, I do this,
Yes.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And they get to try it, and then moms can say, you know what, I need you to place your hand here, or I need to press here. And the partners have a better understanding. The mamas have already worked through what feels good and what doesn't feel good, so that when they get to that space, they can just act and not have to be thinking about it.
Yeah, which is definitely, that's the goal of the practice. You know what I mean? Not even just prenatal. So that way, when we are in these moments of high whatever or low whatever, these extremes, we can get back to that, some sort of stasis, which I imagine is probably pretty hard during labor.
Yes. Yeah.
So are there other postures that are good during labor?
Anything that's going to be some sort of a squat is going to be good during labor. We're working to move that baby down in the pelvis.
Apanavayu.
Yeah.
For those listening who aren't familiar with the Apanavayu, it's the downward wind energy of the body.
Yeah. That's one thing. When I was teaching that workshop, I told them, think everything down and out. Like, don't be rubbing the shoulders up high or circles or, any of that. Everything is down and out, because we want to move that energy down and out. We don't want to confuse the body, the baby, the breath. We're just, in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had some of my own womb dilemmas last year, and actually I worked a lot with Apanavayu, just like we need to move all this stuff down and out. I didn't use the language down and out, but I mean, I'm familiar with that downward energy, and so for me, sometimes it's even just sort of like the thought of down, because I mean, obviously we can use the body to create downward energy, but just like just keep thinking, like, can your breath go down? Can your energy move down? Apanavayu, it's one of my faves. Yesterday, I actually wanted my class to maybe do Malasana or Upaveshasana, but I actually wasn't sure if I should do it during a prenatal class, just because they still have weeks to go until delivery. And like, is there a time where you want to keep the energy in? We don't want everything to come down and out too soon. Right, so would Apanavayu or any downward sort of postures be appropriate in a prenatal class?
Sure, because what I usually do is I usually give them the option to sit on blocks, so they still have that support, and then we'll also do Kegels while we're there. So we're working with strengthening those muscles as well, so it's not just purely thinking down and out at that point. You know, we're pulling up and in as well. So kind of strengthening that pelvic floor.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I'm going to be totally prepared to teach prenatal yoga after our conversation today. Bring it, pregnant ladies. I'm ready for you. Bend your knee. Oh, God, I don't know if I should. I really like that you get the partner involved, because I could see for the women, they're like, they're not even thinking about it anymore.
Right,
so that's really a nice option to get the partner involved.
Well, and the partner often just feels kind of lost because they aren't experiencing what their mom is experiencing. They don't know how they can help. They don't know how she feels. And so they often feel separate, not only during labor, but even during a lot of the pregnancy. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so this is a really nice way to have them physical together in a way that's going to support mama and let her feel that support.
And I don't know if the partner, if we're speaking about male partners in particular who are probably romantic, I don't know if they would use this language. I don't know if they're like, I feel empowered, but it does empower them, right? To like know what to do, know how to do it, to be able to take action. My poor dad, my mom's told me this story 1,000 times. He was so sick with all 3 of his children's deliveries. He couldn't even be in the room because he was too sick, So if you're able to be in the room, it's empowering to know what to do and to be supportive.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So what else do we need to know about prenatal? You said there's so much. I don't even know what questions to ask because I don't know anything about it.
Oh my goodness. Well, at a certain point, it's, the moms aren't going to feel comfortable laying on their back anymore. So like with Shavasana or other postures, like I'll have them come to restorative sometimes, and I have to give modifications so that they're not laying on their back because they're not going to be comfortable.
Too much like baby weight on the...
Right, yeah. And it gets hard to breathe too, just because of all the baby weight, and you're building up in the chest as well. So doing things on an incline so they've still got that support and to help them keep that
Sorry, I'm just
breath.
chuckling because you said they're like also like growing in their breasts. And I mean, it's so clear that the people who created yoga were men, because I'm like, really? Clearly you're not suffocating on your boobs in plow pose, but I am.
Right.
Or I'll even have like female teachers sometimes say to do things. I'm like, well, clearly you don't wear a big bra because I can't do that. I feel you,
Yes,
for sure.
Yeah.
So modifying for a changing body or for just your normal body.
Yeah. I once had a teacher, I was working through a twist, and he told me I had to move it up and out of the way.
I know who you're talking about. He's the kindest man on earth. He is truly the kindest man on earth. He's like, you're going to have to move yourself.
Move yourself.
You move yourself. Let's not do this. How about let's not bind?
Right.
Here's an idea. No. I'm telling you, man, people don't get it. And I guess, that's like a real thing for pregnant women because, their breasts do, of course, grow. They're preparing to, for breastfeeding and stuff. And so a lot of postures, the weight, it shifts, to be on your back or to like bring your Viparita Karani with the legs up if you're on at the wall or on a block.
Yep.
Even for someone like me, that can be uncomfortable. And I know, too, for pregnant women, they can get a lot of congestion, and I'm congested all the time. So that can feel terrible. So it's like you can't breathe at all.
Yeah.
So would you just like put them on an incline or?
Yeah. So we do yoga recliner, which you actually taught me.
I did?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I did? It's comfortable. I didn't know that. We've come full circle here.
Yeah, it's really funny because I actually, I was teaching at a local studio before I started teaching at Long Wave, and I was just renting the space, and I knew I was going to have a client come that was pregnant and I had no idea what to do. And you were taking your 300 at the time.
Oh.
So I went to you and I was like, do you have any ideas?
Oh my God, I think I remember that.
And you were like, yeah, here's yoga recliner and they should do open twist.
Oh my God, I did.
So as we're talking about this, I'm like, you kind of told me some of this stuff. You know, like,
That's hilarious. And then I'm all like, can you come be on my podcast? Because I don't know anything about prenatal yoga. Hank started to snort and he's laughing with us. Hi, Hanky.
But yeah, I love the yoga recliner and the mamas do too.
Yeah, it's comfortable.
Yeah.
If you don't like the yoga recliner, for those of you listening, it's where you take, everyone's probably like, what is a yoga recliner?
Right.
You take one block or two and you basically get the bolster up on an incline. So it's like the highest points under your head. So you're chilling,
Yes,
you know?
yes.
Maybe I'll post a picture on Instagram or something so people can see what it looks like.
Yeah, we'll often open in yoga recliner. We might do shavasana in that way. But we can also do legs up the wall that way. So we'll turn the yoga recliner so that the body would be facing the wall, but you're far enough away so you can put the legs on an angle too. So it's almost
like a V?
Like a V, yeah. And they really love that too because it still gives them the support to breathe.
I should try that because sometimes I can't get my legs up the wall because of my congestion. And, you know, as you're talking, I was just thinking that prenatal yoga, it's the same as every other yoga. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Of course, it's not anything different. You know, I'm like, I should do this. I'm not pregnant, but I should do that because I'm like sniffing right now because it's, I don't know, 75 degrees in Wilmington right now.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It was literally like 75, 76 degrees the other day. I killed a mosquito in my house. I'm a yogi, but I will kill a mosquito. But, you know, I think that's also a really important takeaway is that this isn't something separate than other types of yoga, right? I think there's more emphasis on really listening, you know, because I do believe that in your traditional vinyasa classes, we have to ask ourselves, are we just taking it easy because we're trying to talk ourselves out of it? Can we hold another breath? But during prenatal, I would imagine it's pretty important to like back up. I mean, it's always important to do those things, but I feel like there's just more emphasis, you know. I don't know if I'm making any sense, you know, but that's, you guys get what I mean, I hope. But I don't think it's any different than any other type of yoga.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely, I would agree with you. It's definitely even more awareness of how their body feels for sure. And it's not, sometimes when I'm in a vinyasa, I might be like, okay, it's just mind over matter. But if I were in a prenatal class, I would be thinking, how is my breath feeling right now? You know, what is my mind doing right now? And then also like giving them the freedom when we do those challenge poses. Yes, we're holding them for the length of a contraction. I'm encouraging them to be present and be with it, not pushing it away, right? Because it's not going to go away. Right.
It is here.
But also knowing when they should be backing off and knowing when they should be asking for help. Because a lot of times people who are coming to prenatal might be thinking about a natural birth, but not all of them are. So they might have other things in their birth plan, and they might need to have that permission and that space to say, I need help.
Yes.
I need support, and whatever that help or support looks like, and saying it's okay to take that.
Can we talk about birth plans for a second in the yoga community?
Yes.
So I read an article years ago. I don't know. I haven't seen it in a while. I can't remember what it was called. I will Google it and repost it if I can find it. It was so good. It was talking about the toxic nature of birth plans in yoga and wellness communities because there's a lot of pressure to have a natural birth if you're a yogi or a yogini, right? Like, oh, well, everything should be natural. And then if things don't go as planned, which often happens in labor and delivery, and you have to be willing to make decisions on the fly, if suddenly it turns into a C-section or you change your mind at the last minute, like, nope, I want that. What's it called? An epidural? I want the epidural.
Right.
Then there's all this like, well, I mean, unfortunately, she had to have a C-section. You know, it wasn't what she wanted. She was really disappointed. A, stop speaking for other women. B, it doesn't matter because at that moment in labor and delivery, the most important thing I would imagine, again, I've never done this, but based upon my assumptions and what people have told me, the most important thing is a healthy delivery.
Right.
Not that birth plan, not being holistic mama,
Right.
you know? And so I get really frustrated when I hear other women in the yoga community sort of judge different birth plans. It's not cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody is different.
Yes.
So every pelvis is different. They may not be built for a vaginal birth. It might be important for the health of the baby and the mama to do a cesarean. And it might be that way from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And whatever their birth plan is and whatever direction it goes, we want it to be an experience they can go look back on as a magical, like, this was a birth.
Right.
You know?
A human came out of my body.
Right. Yes. And we both survived.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a really big deal.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I know we're kind of laughing about it, but that's a really big deal.
It is.
And at the end of the day, just because it wasn't Natural Mama Health Plan and crunchy granola, you know, with no medicine, what matters is everyone's good.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I've got to find that article because it was talking about the pressures of natural birth and then also the sort of the judgment that comes along if women choose not to do that or if things don't go as planned. It's so good. It might be something nice for you to share with your students too.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to dig it up. I cannot remember. But after I posted it, someone in the yoga community here locally messaged me and was like, thank you. Because her birth did not go, quote, as planned.
Right.
And people talked about it like, oh, I'm sorry. And she was like, I'm not.
Right.
I'm not sorry.
Right.
I'm alive. My baby's alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that you bring that up because I was reading from a book that's very popular for home births and with doulas, and it's a fantastic book. But I was reading from it in class one time early on when I was teaching prenatal, and recommended the book. And afterwards, one of the clients came to me and she was like, yeah, I started reading that book, but as I was reading it, it was like home birth, good, hospital, bad.
Yes.
And I was like, oh,
Yep.
you're right. That is the tone of this book. I mean, there's lots of wonderful, wonderful information and stories, but maybe that's not the path that person wants to take, and they shouldn't feel bad about it. They should feel good about whatever path they choose.
Yes. And I think there's also the reverse, right? I've read some literature before that's like midwife, home birth, bad,
Right.
hospital, good.
Right.
And there's like this polarizing, you know, effect. But, you know, this has nothing to do, it does come back full circle, I promise. But I was listening to a podcast called The Dream. It's so good. For those of you listening, you have to start listening to season 2. It's about, well, the first season 1 was about multi-level marketing, which sounds boring, but it's about like sort of the corruption of it and how they prey upon women and moms, especially stay-at-home moms, most specifically. And then season 2 is about the wellness industry. And so they're talking about essential oil businesses.
Oh, wow.
It's very good. And during the preview, I haven't heard this episode yet because it hasn't been released, but during the preview, this woman says there comes a time when a woman has to make a decision about her pregnancy and just trust that person. Because I think they're going to start talking about things like, I don't know yet, but my guess is home birth,
Right.
you know, that sort of stuff. And just based upon that clip, they're right. You just have to make a decision at some point, you know, and it's not our place to judge anyone for their decisions.
Right. Right. Definitely.
Yeah. With that said, everyone should listen to The Dream. It's really good. And I swear the multi-level marketing part sounds boring. By the end, you will be pissed. And I've decided, and I have a friend who has also decided after listening to it, I cannot buy anything from multi-level marketing companies anymore. I just can't. And now, of course, season 2 is about the wellness industry. They're talking about like crystal healing, essential oils, that sort of stuff.
Wow.
So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
You should check it out.
Yeah, I will.
Cool.
Cool.
So anything else about birth plans, prenatal, any of that good stuff we need to know about?
Oh my gosh. There's so many things. I mean, I could go on forever.
Do you have any resources for folks out there, whether they are pregnant mamas who are trying to learn more or maybe someone just supporting a pregnant mama?
Sure. Well, for local, the Cape Fear Area Doula group is fantastic. They're a collective doula group, and they actually have birth circles and pregnancy support circles.
What's a birth circle?
So a birth circle is, I actually went to one, and I felt so weird about going because I was like,
I'm just here to watch.
Right. And I even emailed them first. I was like,
So I just snorted on my podcast. I just had this vision. You're like, hi, I'm just here to watch.
It's like, I don't have any stories to share because I've never been pregnant. But I'd really like to come to your birth circle because I'm interested in being a doula. So I went, and it was fascinating. So they meet usually monthly, and it's just women that are either recently had a birth or are still pregnant. But they talk about their birth story so they can share their experience. But they can also talk about what anxieties they might be having. There's a lot of anxiety around breastfeeding, which I had no idea.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, there's a lot around it because there's a lot of pressure to be able to produce and to be able to produce a certain amount, and that there's expectation or judgment if your body is unable to produce a certain amount, or if your baby doesn't want a certain amount. So there's like,
where does all this pressure for women come from?
Right.
I do not understand. I just don't understand where it comes from. Because then there's also this huge debate about breastfeeding in public. Should you do it? Should you not do it? Right? Like it's this big shameful thing that you have to feed your baby.
Right. Right. Yeah.
God.
Baby has to eat.
Yeah. It's really strange.
Yeah. So the birth circle was really fascinating to be able to hear all those different things. And then working through postpartum depression and having that support system and the different types of medications that may or may not be available for women that are nursing. So the discussion was just fascinating, and it was a great way to build support for people that have just gone through something similar or are about to go through something. And they might have different resources too that they can offer. I haven't been to the pregnancy support circle, but I imagine it's relatively similar. And I definitely recommend both of those to my clients.
Yeah, and for folks listening who aren't local, because there's listeners now in 64 countries, which is crazy, you can look in your own area to see if these things exist, and if not, start one.
Yes.
Yeah. Or who knows too, there's so much online now. If folks live in remote areas and there's just not anyone really to connect with, maybe there's something online too.
Yeah. I know there's some Facebook groups that work with postpartum support. They call it the 4th trimester. It's so important to have that support. That's something I'd like to do more research on this year, so that I have
maybe that's
more
your New Year quote,
right?
Something intention. It's not really for the New Year. Yeah.
But I'd love to have a better understanding of that, so I can offer more resources. For new mamas, Baby List is a really good online. It's kind of like a wish list for your bridal shower, or not bridal shower, maybe bridal shower.
Yeah, but like wedding stuff.
Yeah. Or baby shower.
Oh, baby shower.
That's what I meant.
Oh, I thought you were sort of like comparing it.
Could be wedding,
but
too.
It's similar, in the same vein.
But yeah, you can Google Baby List, and you can save all of the things that you're looking for people to get for you for your new baby in that one space. So it's easy to find, and then they do reviews on different products and that type of thing. So that's a really great resource. There's also a place where you can rent maternity clothes.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, so I'll have to look that up. I posted on our Long Wave Yoga Mamas Facebook page.
Okay, and I can put it in the show notes if you send it to me. Yeah,
for sure. Because that's one thing women always struggle with, is like, I'm buying all this stuff
for a really short period of time.
Short period of time. Yeah.
And the body's changing so fast,
so quickly.
That my guess is it just sort of only fits for a few weeks before the next one. You need something new.
And if you have a second pregnancy, it may or may not be similar to your first pregnancy. So you may not be wearing the same styles or sizes or whatnot.
Right.
So so having this place that you can rent maternity clothes from and then send them back.
That's
really,
awesome.
Yeah.
There's so many resources out there. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Any good books we should know about?
Oh golly, there's lots. I'm trying to think of ones that I'm reading right now. The Birth Partner by Penny Simkin. She's one of the founders of DONA, which is Doulas of North America. They're international now as well. But they're the certifying group for doulas. One of the certifying groups. There's many different ones. But she has a book. And it talks about both the role of the doula, but also the role of the birth partner, rather not that birth partner is romantic or a family member or part of the woman's social network. That's really fantastic because it goes all the way through, coming up to early labor, possible preterm labor, and all the way through postnatal care. So, and different signs to watch for and that type of thing. And the role that the partner can play, which is so important.
Yeah, that is important.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the doula certification. Can you explain what is a doula?
Yes.
Because I don't know if I fully know what a doula is.
People ask me all the time because I am working towards being certified as a doula. I've gone through the training. The first thing I tell people is doulas don't catch. So the doula is not a medical practitioner.
Right.
She or he may have knowledge about medical practices, but it's not a medical licensure type of program. Doula is from a Greek word that means woman caregiver. And so her or his main function is the emotional support for the birth couple.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are you just like in the room, just supporting along the way?
Yes. And a big part of the doula is to help the birth couple remember and revisit their birth plan if that's something that they would like to do. So if other options or suggestions come up, allowing them to ask the questions that they need to ask, remind them, do you have other questions? If it's possible to wait to make a decision,
I feel like I need to
think about it.
I need a doula like every time I go to the doctor.
I know,
for everything.
Right? Yes.
Because I always feel like I can't ask any questions. Everyone's out of the room and we're done.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so important. The doula doesn't make any decisions for the couple and they don't speak on behalf of the couple.
Sure.
They just help the couple kind of stay present and understand what's going on around them.
Do you work with, I'm sorry for interrupting.
No,
do you work with them pre-delivery or so like up until like, I don't know, like month 3 through delivery, or do you just meet them closer to delivery time?
So a lot of times they'll contract with a doula maybe in their second trimester. Once you contract, the doula is on call typically from 36 weeks on. And we'll usually do 1 or 2 prenatal appointments, kind of getting to know the couple, talking about what comfort measures mom may like, what does she like to do to relax, that type of thing. The doula comes into play once mom is in active labor. So that's usually, if they're going to be using the hospital, that's usually when they're on their way to the hospital. They may call the doula beforehand, and the doula will not recommend whether or not they need to go to the hospital, but they will kind of review, well, what are your symptoms? What are you feeling? Have you called your care provider? Just kind of helping them through that process. Then the doula stays with mom through the entire labor and delivery process, and then stays for about an hour afterwards to help with first latch, if that's how they're choosing to feed their baby. And then we'll do a postnatal appointment as well to kind of just check in on mom, check in on baby, see how things are going.
What a cool role to have. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this path.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. So you're working toward it. You said you need to, what did you need to finish up your certification?
Right. So now I need to go to actual births.
Ladies, here's your doula.
I've done the training. I'm doing the additional reading and the not in-person type training that we have. There's a whole collection of books that we need to read. But then the next part of the process is to have 3 different doula clients, a total of at least 15 hours of labor, and working with those and their ladies and their partners, and then getting evaluations from them as well as from their care providers and submitting all of that. I'm choosing to go through DONA, so submitting all of that to DONA for certification. So it can take some time depending on how quickly you have clients.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is a really exciting path for you.
Yeah.
I think you're perfect for it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're just
excited.
so nurturing. You're perfect for it. I couldn't do it. Just like the Benjamin thing, I'd be like, push. Oh my God, come on. I'm just kidding. Are there any big takeaways that you want the Dharma Drops audience to know before we wrap things up?
Oh gosh. It's so important for mom to take care of herself. There's a lot of focus on baby, which absolutely there should be focus on baby. But sometimes mom gets kind of forgotten, whether it's during pregnancy or during labor or even after the birth. So moms, make sure that you have that support system and know what your partners can do to help and explore that together, because partners don't know what they can do and they're probably going to screw up. So
they don't mean to.
allow them that grace beforehand, you know, and just really have that communication so that you can work together. Because this is a partnership, whether it's your romantic partner or somebody from your social network or your doula or your mom or your sister or whatever. It's a partnership to birth this baby and to birth the parents.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so
I never
exciting.
even thought about that, to birth parents.
Yeah.
Like you're right. There is so much emphasis on the baby, but it's like a baby's being born and now like the parents are in this brand new role of life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful.
I do have a question before we get into some other stuff that to wrap the episode up. For women out there who maybe are struggling to find a support system, where can they go? What are some things they can do?
I would definitely look to community resources. So things like doula collectives or birth networks, for sure. Sometimes there's local businesses, like we have Bump and Beyond, that it's a store, but it also has a lot of community support as well.
Yeah.
So
is that a chain?
I'm not sure if it is or not. I don't know. Yeah. So checking out for those community resources, getting involved in some sort of gathering, whether it's prenatal yoga or some sort of discussion, birth education. There's only like 5% of the population that go through birth education.
Really?
Like, it's just such a small percentage. And then maybe it's 15%, but
It doesn't matter. 5 or 15, that's small.
and then only 5% of those people actually retain that information. So getting that birth education, just to understand everything, that all the different possibilities and what's going on. And then just talk with people, let people know what's going on. People are much more inclined to talk about this whole process if people just start bringing it up. I think it's something that is not always talked about, and so people feel more alone. And so finding those folks that you can share those things with.
Yeah, I think that, of course, pregnancy has changed in our current culture, but years and years ago, I was doing some volunteer literacy tutoring for Cape Carteret, which is, kind of a few hours away from here. It's actually where I got little Hanky next to you. He was living in a home there and had to be rehomed because his old owner was deploying out of the country and he needed a new family. But anyway, while I was doing the training, the woman who was doing the literacy training so we could become tutors, I don't even know how we got there, but she mentioned about like back when women were pregnant and weren't allowed to work anymore and couldn't be seen because it was this shameful symptom or sign like, oh, she had sex. Right. She has to be put away, So luckily we're not there, but that doesn't mean that things aren't lonely anymore or isolating, because the experience is really unique for everyone. And, people's support systems differ. And it's also like, it's just a different part of your life that for many women have never experienced before. Right, so hopefully everyone out there listening, if you're pregnant, you can find a support system.
Go to a prenatal class.
Go out there, show that belly. I remember, sorry, Mom, this isn't a criticism, but I remember when it became popular for pregnant women to wear tighter shirts. My mom was like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing that, Right. So go out there and show your bellies.
Yes.
Yeah. So if folks want to learn more from you or more about you, where can they find you?
They can go to my website, KristenNiceYoga.com, and then I'll also have some more information about my doula expansion.
Awesome.
Soon.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely look there. They can also find me on Instagram, Kristen Nice Yoga, and I'm also on Facebook.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are you Kristen Nice on Facebook?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And nice just as she seems. Nice. Yes. Nice.
Just like, have a nice day.
Yeah. Kristen, have a nice day. And you've been doing some blogging, so there's all sorts of stuff up there for folks to learn more about you.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So before we part ways for real here, before Hanky's best friend has to go, Hank has been laying next to Kristen the entire recording.
He's my emotional support animal.
He is your emotional support. She's been petting him almost the entire hour that we've been recording. So before we part ways, are there any other things that you want to share in terms of stuff that you're really enjoying in life lately? You've listened to Dharma Drops a number of times. So, we like to end things sometimes with just what's going on that's fun in life.
Yeah. Well, I'm loving preparing for this archetype workshop.
Ooh,
I'm such a nerd. That's all I did yesterday. Just preparing for this, coming up with my resource sheet and looking at the cards and, just doing all those nerdy research things, and I'm loving that. I have started running again recently.
I've been seeing on your social media. You're killing it. Yeah.
Accidentally started a running club. Like
That's so cool. I should come. I will run for 30 seconds and I'm going to walk for 10 minutes.
You should come.
Okay.
Everyone is welcome.
Oh my God. When is it?
Sundays at 9 or 10, depending on...
Sundays, it'd be somewhere between 9 and noon.
We typically do 9 because we have some mamas in the group that would like to do things a little earlier, but we didn't have any this last week, so we met at 10.
I'm down for 10 o'clock. Awesome. Yeah, you're killing it with the running. Like every day, I think, aren't you?
I try to do every other day.
Every other day?
I'm a little pitta, and I found that if I do too much of that exertion, then I get edgy, which just doesn't blend well with the nice. It's really confusing for people.
I can see you in prenatal right now, like really edgy, like aggravated, which is how I live my whole life, I think. God. Actually, I used to run all the time, and I've talked about this a lot. If we're looking at like the stereotypes, it's the quote best I've ever looked. It's also the worst I ever felt.
Right. Yeah.
When I ran all the time, every day, I felt terrible.
Yeah. That's the other reason I'm doing every other day is because I will go too fast.
Yeah.
Too soon.
Yep.
And end up injuring myself.
Me too.
But I got to tell you, my body feels better than it ever has running before.
Like
It's it's really nice. And some pains that I was experiencing in vinyasa classes have disappeared.
Oh, nice.
Because I'm working those muscles and strengthening them in a different way, which has been really great. And it's been a great stress reliever because there's just things that have been going on with my job have been a lot to handle, and vinyasa just wasn't cutting it for me.
Sometimes I've experienced sorry, I have something in my eye. I know everyone listening can't see, but I've been rubbing my eye for a really long time. It's bothering me. I've experienced points in my life where I really just needed to like hardcore work some stuff out, and yoga was not enough. I mean, yoga is often enough. It really is. But I needed to run. I needed to do a little bit of sprinting and just really get some pent up stuff out.
Yeah. And I've been using this app, the Nike Run Club app.
Oh, I've heard it's very good.
Yeah, they have guided runs on there, and they partner with Mindspace.
Oh.
And so they've got some great kind of meditative runs, like guided based on mindfulness around running.
That's cool.
Which has been fantastic because it's giving me a different perspective for the same types of things that I'm working with in other areas. But it's just reminding me that it's applicable to everything.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes we can get caught up, or I can get caught up in the yoga mindset, and everything has to be yoga all the time.
Girl, that's one of the reasons why I started this whole podcast. I mean, the irony is I talk about yoga all the time on the podcast, but that it doesn't have to be all yoga all the time, and that we all have these like diverse personalities and interests.
Right.
You know, because I think it's easy to get sucked into this yoga life, and then it's like yoga. You don't do yoga, I can't be your friend.
Right.
You know, and so that's one of the reasons why I even started this, is just to highlight that we're really diverse and we can do yoga, but we're also really funny, and sometimes we cuss, and sometimes we say things that we wish we wouldn't have, and the whole nine yards, the full spectrum.
Yes, definitely. That was something I kind of observed with the running club, was it suddenly started to mesh my world. So I had people from work and people from yoga.
Which can be dangerous.
Right. I had people that, you know, are at different levels at work coming, and then people that were either in my classes or other teachers. So it was like a whole blend of worlds, you know, kind of coming together, which was really neat. And then it took the pressure off of like having to talk about work with people that I work with, or having to talk about yoga.
Because that's the worst, when you like go out with work people to have fun, and 15 minutes into it, it's like, oh my God, today at work, blah, 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 blah.
Right. Yeah.
And you're like, here we are again.
Yeah.
It can be dangerous meshing your worlds together, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That can be tricky. try to keep mine kind of separate. But there's also not because I don't care if anyone knows each other, but sometimes like my dance community, it's my reprieve from like the work stuff that drives me crazy.
Right.
You know, that's where I can go and get like, finally can check out, because no one knows all the dramas, you know, and stuff like that. So it's nice to have things separate sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you're loving right now?
Oh gosh, I've been off work for many days now.
That's awesome.
Which is amazing.
That's the best part of academia. There's some time off.
Yes. Where it's like totally off. Like there's nothing happening.
The school's closed.
Right.
You cannot work.
Right. Yeah. But so we've been binge watching a lot of stuff.
Ooh, what are you watching?
We just finished season 2 of Lost in Space. On
I haven't
Netflix.
seen that.
It's amazing. Parker Posey's in it. She's fantastic.
Okay, I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, it's so good. So good.
Have you watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
No.
Oh my God, you gotta watch The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. It's on Amazon.
Okay.
It's so good. It's about a woman, I think in the 60s. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's either in the late 50s or 60s. I can't remember. And she decides to become a stand-up comedian. And it's really good. And she's Jewish, and it's New York City, and it's just like just a larger-than-life character. It's really good.
Nice. Yeah.
What else are you watching?
Oh, gosh. Well, we just went and saw Star Wars, so we had to watch, the original ones leading up to it. We skipped the other 3. Yeah. We're purists. Gosh, I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, guilty pleasure. Like there were years that I would never admit this, but they did the 90210 reboot.
Oh my God. I know. I cannot wait to watch the 90210 reboot.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's very meta. Yeah.
Aaron's always too cool for school. And I was like, oh my God, that 90210 reboot. And he's like, you watch 90210? I was like, of course I watch 90210. And he's like, ugh. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Were you too cool for 90210? It's so good. I watched the Full House one too.
Nice.
Don't care. It's my youth and I love it.
Yes, I've been revisiting the old seasons of 90210.
Oh, yeah. Do you know, Aaron and I don't even know how we got here. It was over the holidays. Somehow on YouTube, he came across the new Price is Right. And we watched that. And then that got me into watching these old episodes of Let's Make a Deal. These game shows, man, they were very strange back in the 60s. I don't know what was going on. And cars only cost $2,000. I don't know how we got into these like $40,000 cars. Right. It's like you can win a $2,000 car on The Price is Right. Come on. So that's what I've been watching in case anyone wants to know how I spend my time. Oh my God. Kristen, this has been so much fun.
So much fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. So folks, you can get all of Kristen's information in the show notes and you can check her out there. And then you can always find me at Dharma Drops Podcast on Instagram and then dharmadropspodcast.com. And of course on Facebook, Dharma Drops Podcast. It's so creative. All right, guys, until we meet again next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Dharma Drops. If you want a little more Dharma Drops goodness, head over to dharmadropspodcast.com and sign up for the email list because every month members of the email list receive exclusive content. In fact, last month for November, all the members of the email list got a free exclusive gratitude Dharma Drops episode. And it was only available via email. So if you're listening to this and you're not on the email list, you missed an episode. So head over to dharmadropspodcast.com. You can scroll to the bottom. You'll see a little form that you can put your name and your email address in, and you are on the list to receive exclusive Dharma Drops content. Also, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to Dharma Drops on whatever app you're listening on. When you do so, not only does it help support the podcast, but it's also a really great way to share Dharma Drops with others. Thanks for listening.